The Knights of the Holy Grail have finally had their face and names fully revealed to us, as well as their potential relations to the four Knights of the Apocalypse. As mentioned in the previous video, we talked about how one of the characters being named, being Galahad, means that he is potentially the child of Lancelot in some distant future. Well, in this chapter, we actually get confirmation on whether or not that is in fact true or not. The full designs, names, and even ages of these characters are fully revealed, and their comments on the four Knights of the Apocalypse during that brief interaction with them might say a lot more about where they come from and why they don't buy that these are the real four Knights of the Apocalypse. We got a good amount to dig into today, but before we jump right into the chapter, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos, and hype the video up to help boost in the algorithm so more people can check out this series and realize that Four Knights of the Apocalypse is not only still going, but it is going strong. It also shows you guys enjoy what I make here on the channel and encourages me to make more videos going in the future. And if you want to see me doing videos outside of anime and manga, go and check out my second channel, JW Comics, where I talk about comic books, right now DC focused. I got a lot of ideas for that. It's a passion project, and I would really appreciate it if you guys go check it out whenever you get the chance. But with that out of the way, let's jump right into the chapter. Chapter 235 of Four Knights of the Apocalypse, titled Visitors from Beyond. And we start with a double-page color spread. And this looks so damn cool, as not only do we have the face reveals of all five of these knights, we got their armor and hair color schemes, as well as a mirror in the background. Now that is interesting. There are a lot of theories going on about what this mirror could symbolize, or if it's just set dressing, for all we know. We have the one on the left being the masked sorcerer, having a bit more of a grayish hair, while also having very long arms and legs, being incredibly tall, and being revealed to be a woman. We have the spearman that has the goddess clan wings, having blue armor, with yellow hair and blue eyes. We have Galahad sitting with his katana, with more purplish hair and red eyes, taking the two aspects that we pretty much are now confirmed that he is Lancelot's son, being Lancelot's face and eyes, looking more so like Bond, but also Guinevere's hair color. Also, I find it funny that the two generations in a row, the face is the father, but the hair color is the mother. That is something, and also being immensely shorter than the parent. That's actually kind of funny. And then all the way on the right is the knight that has on rapier style of fighting, having green hair, pretty much the same color as Percival, while the other knight, the archer, has more of a combination of brown and blondish hair, as well as, I believe, purplish eyes, obviously referring to Percival's. So I'm mentioning this because it is incredibly important. But we jump right into the chapter, as we actually get to see all five of the Grail Knights masks off, as they're just relaxing, talking, and just decompressing from their interaction, as we see a bunch of remnant Chaos Knights are laying in wait on the flying rubble that is Camelot to ambush the Grail Knights. Also wondering who the Grail Knights are and wondering if they're associated with them, most likely referring to the Four Knights of the Apocalypse. We then get the name of the wizard woman as we get a full look at her, as she's wondering what's up with the Fakers. That man had intense power. And the name of this woman is, I'm going to butcher this, llywarch. I feel like, is this Welsh? I think it's Welsh. I have to brush up on pronunciations and stuff like that. Anyway, llywarch is talking about how when they face Lancelot, despite them saying that the four knights that they're facing are Fakers, the intensity from Lancelot had her floored. Galahad, blushing as he's staring right at her, is just saying, I'm more floored by how much skin you show, llywarch. But she starts teasing Galahad, saying, if you want, you can get a bit hands-on with me if you want, with the other knight with the goddess power saying not to pick on Galahad, as Galahad just turns away in embarrassment. The goddess knight, who I just realized now has the same earring that Tristan has gotten that symbolizes the royal family of Leonis, ends up asking Galahad what his thoughts are on the knight that they fought that was being called Lancelot. Galahad says that it kind of drives him up the wall, because the real Lancelot is 10 times stronger than he is, which is an insane thing to say, considering that the Lancelot we have right now is insanely strong. But if this is a future version of Lancelot's son, this could allude to the fact that even though Lancelot does obviously get stronger over the course of the time, that at the point where Galahad is right now, Lancelot is 10 times stronger, but the fact that Galahad can in fact be able to keep up with and slightly injure and surprise the current Lancelot speaks a lot to Galahad's strength, as well as the power scaling going on potentially in the future for all we know. But llywarch ends up laughing, saying that the fake Percival was even more of a menace, as this catches the two knights off on the side, off guard, as the goddess knight ends up saying even he was copying the hairstyle and hair color. Now that is dedication. Now, the knight that fought Percival fully is revealed to be a woman, and also looks so much like Galahad at this point, pretty much confirming even more stuff, says that, well, the real Percival doesn't look that much like a dope, as we later learn to be her brother ends up just laughing, calling him Car, asking what's so funny. And we get her name, Lohengrin. So in my previous video discussing what these knights' names could be, I was right with one of them being Lohengrin. Only difference is that I assumed the archer was a girl and that the knight was the guy. In this instance, it was Swat. So you know what? I can live with that. And also having the knight take after On, both physically and in terms of, actual combat strength and technique, makes a lot of sense. And a lot of times I like being wrong because it throws a curveball and keeps me on my toes. But Car ends up asking Lohengrin what she thought about the person she was fighting, referring to her, as we end up learning that they're talking about Gawain. Lohengrin says that now she kind of doubts her abilities at this point. It was like she could read every one of her moves. And Car says she had one thing in common with her, the ability to freely change her size. That weird girl sure felt like the real Gawain to me, as this catches llywarch off guard, as they mention Gawain's by name, which, yeah, that's crazy. Now, honestly, Lohengrin, from what I've seen from last chapter, didn't actually fight Gawain. She obviously fought Percival, but probably because of the brief interaction that they had, did feel off about Gawain. Either that, or it is a mistranslation, and they're talking about both Percival and Gawain in that instance. I don't think it is with how the conversation went. But either way, it definitely seems like out of all the four knights so far, they view, at least with terms of personality and how Gawain changed from slender to buff, state that she was more like the Gawain that they know. Now, as they're saying this, Galahad goes to give some jerky to llywarch to asking if she's hungry, but she not only grabs the jerky, but also starts flirting with Galahad and teasing him, saying that, oh yeah, sure, I'll let you have a touch, big boy. I'm starting to kind of find llywarch's personality immediately endearing and funny, as she seems to just have a thing potentially for Galahad and just likes teasing him about it. I can see where she's kind of getting this type of personality from, if you catch my drift. But she then starts eating the meat and is obviously incredibly frustrated, saying, why would the invincible master of the sun be turning huge and small like that? She's the most amazing holy knight there ever was. Don't lump her in with that girl. Once more showcasing the difference between the knights that they know and the knights that we see right now in the current story. But the subject matter then changes to the person with the silver hair, as llywarch ends up saying that he irked her the most because he fully deflected all of her attacks, wondering what kind of magic that was, as we're now going towards Tristan. But it's then that the other knight that comes in says, it's not magic, it's a mystical sword move capable of repelling any offensive magic, as he knows that it is in fact called full counter, and that it was an ability from Tristan the hero, and that his grandfather was even more adept at it. I'm gonna pause really quick because, first of all, this character that we're seeing does look a lot like he would be Tristan's son, but based off of how he's referring to Tristan, it feels like they've never met Tristan at all in person whatsoever, which has a lot of implications as to that. But also, they're referring to their grandfather being more adept at full counter, referring to Tristan's grandfather. We're assuming Meliodas, so Meliodas is his father. Now, this obviously could be a mistranslation, but Four Knights has been pretty good with its translations, so I don't think that's the case, and there might be a deeper meaning to this, meaning that this goddess knight either might be one generation away from Tristan's son, and that this could be Tristan's grandson, which would make sense if Tristan's son was called Tristan, like in Arthurian legend there I think was Tristan III, so there's another Tristan after our main Tristan, which would explain why when they're referring to Tristan the hero and referring to a grandfather, they're referring to Meliodas. Unless, as we've stated, timeline wibbly wobbly shenanigans ensue, and things are entirely different in some aspects, primarily with Tristan. Because I don't think that they're talking about the Demon King or Bartra. So, unless we're talking about Chandler, the person who taught Meliodas full counter in the first place. But Meliodas never saw him as family, and he was just an instructor, so this could potentially also just be a whole historical thing that just got lost in translation in their version of history, so that could be something else. But either way, that is an interesting way to go about Tristan, because outside of the other three knights having similarities, only difference being in types of power and how they present themselves, they seemingly have no freaking idea what Tristan looks like, and the only move that kind of gave it away to them, to some sort of like connection, was the full counter. Even Tristan having goddess wings catches them off guard, as back in the chapter, the goddess knight says, most of all he bore these goddess wings. I never knew anyone had inherited goddess blood apart from me. Once more feeding into the fact that this knight never met Tristan in the first place, and I am so curious as to what this knight's whole history is specifically, because he feels the most attached from the Four Knights of the Apocalypse, outside of potentially being Tristan's heir in some way, shape, or form, his child or grandchild for all we know, because that is that's a lot to think about if he hasn't met another goddess, meaning A, Elizabeth is not in the picture, and also Tristan's not in the picture, because like, that makes no sense unless there is some sort of generational gap or something else happens when it came to this knight in his lineage. Because we'll get on into the chapter, because there's definitely some sort of like age shenanigans going on that I'll talk about in potentially a different video, because the discussion of the four knights of the future to the ones in the present through the eyes of these Grail knights is interesting and could be dug into in a different video. So look forward to that, because you bet your asses I'm making that one next before the next chapter comes out. But with that, they end up wondering what this could possibly be and who they are, because they doubt that they're just charlatans posing as the Four Knights of the Apocalypse. But Galahad just says, isn't that why we're here on this mission in the first place? Isn't that the whole reason why we're chosen to make the deformed right again? As we get images of all of them just getting serious. As, honestly, this could allude again to something going on in the future, tied to potentially the fake Four Knights of the Apocalypse, leading them here. Things are different. Things might not be going in the way that they should, as that leads to a different theory if this is like time travel shenanigans or separate timelines, dimensions, or whatever, because the way things are being presented here leaves a lot of questions and a lot of intrigue that I'm not going to touch this particular part of the dialogue in terms of making the deformed right again until we get a bit more of these knights, because I feel like there's some missing information that we need before I truly come up with a theory type video for what these knights are doing here and where they come from completely. But their attention then shifts as Galahad says, no reason to get all stodgy like that, let's just warm up with these guys, as then all the Chaos Knights that have just been laying in wait begin to jump at them, throwing every magical attack at these knights at full force to crush them in an instant. We then end up getting all of them using their abilities to fight off and easily take down all these Chaos Knights, with Carr unleashing Spirit Spear Chastifol's first form, Guardian, as it takes the form of a giant stuffed bunny rabbit. In the next page, we end up seeing llywarch casting Frozen Grave on a bunch of Chaos Knights in an instance with a short chant. We then see a whole bunch of knights going after Lohengrin as she then dodges and weaves out of all of their magical-based attacks, as she then uses Scattered Rose to knock them all back, knocking them down. She then smugly says, "I suppose I'm not so untalented after all. What a shot of confidence for me. Thank you." Obviously getting a bit more of that on confidence and charm. Takes after her mother. But we then jump over to the Goddess Knight as he lunged down with a meteor thrust. A literal light attack causing a massive explosion on all these Chaos Knights, knocking them down. Really cool page. I love it. And also, this knight looks so much like Meliodas in this instance, because that is definitely something. He looks so much like Meliodas in the cover page. He has blonde hair and blue eyes, so like, he takes after Meliodas a lot more than Tristan does. That's something. But we then get the rest of these knights beginning to pull back. But Galahad is waiting for them as he unsheathes his sword, as he then unleashes Matchless Limb Cutter, as he systematically cuts all the limbs and tendons of all these remaining knights as they all fall to the ground before him. Interesting thing I do want to bring up as I saw people talking about it, the fact that Galahad is using and is very proficient with a katana could allude to the fact that maybe he was trained by Nanashi. That would be an interesting thing to talk about because we have not seen Nanashi post time skip since the Demon Realm arc after Lancelot humiliated him. So it would be interesting if Nanashi was the mentor of Galahad in terms of sword techniques. That would be really cool. But as the Chaos Knights are all laying there completely broken and defeated, they're asking, did Leonis really have people this monstrous before? Asking for who they are. As Galahad says, they're the Knights of the Holy Grail, as we get a nice big group shot of all 5 of them, as he says, we also happen to be the sons of the greatest of heroes, the 4 Knights of the Apocalypse. As you then get a double page spread showcasing all the knights that we've seen with their names, ages, and who they're the children of. The Goddess Knight is Ysaye. I'm gonna butcher some of these names, I swear. He's 22 and is said to be the son of Tristan. Llywarch is 23, and she is the adopted daughter of Gawain. That is interesting. Now, the way she talks about Gawain obviously refers to a close connection, so the fact that she is the adoptive daughter of Gawain does make sense, as well as her personality, probably Gawain's personality rubbed off on her. We also now have Kardeiz, who is 25, who is the son of Percival, and Lohengrin, also 25, daughter of Percival. So we definitely did get the future Percival 2 wives, 2 kids thing happening. That's with their ages 25 years from this point in the story. And lastly, the 5th member of the Holy Grail Knights, the youngest member, Galahad, son of Lancelot, age 18. And we can't just end this chapter off with a badass note and cool group shot, but we end up getting Llywarch and Lohengrin just kind of chastising Galahad, saying, hey, I'm a girl, you know, you didn't have to call us the sons of the greatest heroes, as obviously Galahad is like super bashful and like apologizes for that as he got caught up in the moment. And that ends the chapter. Now, again, really cool chapter. Love that we had this whole thing focused on the Holy Grail Knights, as with them being introduced, we definitely needed a bit more in terms of characterization, who they are, where they come from, and if they truly are the children of the 4 Knights of the Apocalypse. Now, this does confirm they're the children of the 4 Knights of the Apocalypse. Most likely, the future, or a future timeline for all we know. As we know, Percival last chapter already said that Nazians are pretty much pregnant at this point, so Percival, first one to have kids in the group, and one inherits Nazian's abilities of the Fairy King's Forest with the same locket and piece of the Fairy King's Forest for Chastityfold, could allude to Nazian's taking the throne as the Queen of the Fairies, while their son ends up, you know, going and fighting in whatever thing they have to do for the Holy Grail. Ann's daughter is obviously taking after her mother, as she seems to be entirely human. Llywarch is a powerful sorceress, and she is a adopted daughter of Gawain. Obviously, personality traits kind of align with Gawain in terms of how she's acting, as well as her confidence. Ysaye is the son of Tristan, but based off his comments about Tristan and not seeing any other goddesses, leaves me suspicious as to his actual origins. And Galahad, we figured that out last chapter with his name drop. But the interesting thing is that he is the youngest out of the Holy Grail Knights. So that could legitimately mean something, as this confirms one thing. Lancelot and Guinevere are obviously getting together and having a kid, but that doesn't happen for at least another 7 years, as Percival's, well, technically 8, I guess. For another 8 years from this point in the story, for the most part, as Percival's kids are 25, Galahad is 18. So that most definitely confirms that within the next 8 years, Lancelot and Guinevere will get together at some point down the road, when obviously they're both adults. But yeah, we got the Holy Grail Knights. I'm curious to see why they are here in the present, if they even know about them like going to the past. What do they mean by making the Four right again? Why do they think the 4 Knights that we see right now are fakes? And not only that, what is the future of the 4 Knights of the Apocalypse based off of the interactions that their future kids have with them and their comments about the differences? And also with ysaye's comments, did not give a screw over Tristan in the future some way, shape, or form, with having what seems like his own son, or if the timeline shenanigans thing is grandson, not even knowing who he is, what he looks like, and that he is also part of the Goddess clan. That is kind of crazy if that is the case, because everyone else thinks after their parents so much and knows who their parents are. So that's something. But yeah, I'm incredibly excited because, again, so much potential for this to be a cool storyline. But whether or not these knights stick around for the rest of the story, or we'll get to the end of this part of Four Knights of the Apocalypse and then we time jump to potentially their point in the story where they're more of the main characters. That would be an interesting thing to go about it, but would also diminish a bit more of the importance of the 4 Knights. Or we could just go JoJo's with it and just change the story with protagonists as we go further down the generations, for all we know. Who knows? Either way, I am excited for the future, and I can't wait to talk more about this with it by the time the next chapter comes out. And yes, I am going to extend my thoughts on the differences with the 4 Knights' future selves and their current selves with the comments from their kids, and what that could potentially mean. So look forward to that. But with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section down below, as well as all your theories on what's going on, who your favorite Grail Knight is so far, which one has the best design so far. I'm very much keen to give it more so to llywarch, due to the fact that it's kind of simple, but also effective. Lohengrin's design I actually do kind of like. It fits, but obviously Galahad has the Bond Lancelot look, so of course he's going to be everybody's favorite. But you guys let me know in the comments which one's your favorite, and what you think is going to happen in the future. And what's more, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content and make you on the channel and shows you want to see more. And if you want to support the channel more directly, don't forget to check out my Patreon in the link in the description to help this channel do a lot more videos in the future, to help me more with this consistency outside of the chapter reviews with a whole bunch of other stuff. And you'll be getting access within this week, going into next week, a couple of videos that I have just in limbo that I have not released yet, and I don't know if I ever will release them because they're part of video series that aren't finished yet. So if you want to see those videos in advance before they even fully are, released on the YouTube channel at all, go and check those out on my Patreon down in the description. But if not, liking and subscribing is perfectly fine. Just watching these videos through and sharing them with people that you think might enjoy this content still helps the channel out a ton. Now, with all that said and done, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you all had an awesome day.